All right, public comment then. At this time, we welcome members of the community to address the board. When you are called, please come up to the microphone and state your name and your address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please direct all comments to the board. Per established procedures, we will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment. Anyone who indicates that they would like follow-up from the district will get follow-up from the appropriate administrator. First up is Vincent Monahan.
Vincent Monahan. You'll find me at 68. This presentation is rated G. It represents my views only and not any organization that I'm affiliated with. In September, I expressed concerns regarding the board's push to ratify Common Card Amendment policy before board member Holly DeBoer could have all of her questions answered. Paraphrase, the answer that I received from Kristen Fossen is that the board writes no policies and that Truant Law drafts them and then sends them to the board for approval. But you did enact informal procedures before Truant created the policy that for you to vote on, and thus the answer to my question, which I read to you last board meeting, was partially obscured due to semantics. In October, I asked 4 follow-up questions to better understand the process leading to policy generation by Truant. Briefly, those were: number 1, can any board member propose informal procedures for temporary adoption pending legal policy generation? Number 2, are temporary procedures adopted by unanimous or majority vote? Number 3, can community members propose an idea to the board members for temporary procedure creation? And number 4, does the board member have to be assigned to a relevant committee? The answer to all these questions from Kristen Fossen was, quote, "It is difficult to talk in hypotheticals, but the most direct answer to your question is that a good idea can come from anywhere. We will consider any good idea as long as it is relevant to our board duties." I take this to mean that I can approach any of you with an idea to find a sponsor, and if a majority see its merit, it will be adopted as a temporary procedure and potentially a permanent board policy amendment. Knowing this process is crucial, as it may represent the only means that we, the people, can steer the course of the school district. So for the sake of transparency, I urge you to go on record to correct me if my assumptions or my deductions are wrong, else I and the community will assume that my logic and process are correct. With this in mind, there are 2 loose ends to tie up from the last 3 board speeches I made. Number 1, I never really received an answer to which board member advanced the Common Card temporary procedure to Truant for policy generation. Was it 1 member acting as a board of 1? Was it a majority? I don't think it was unanimous because Holly DeBoer never had her questions answered before Truant created the policy. And then number 2, as you're aware, I advocate providing links to national appropriateness guidelines for the board reconsideration policy for committee members to reference and then use if they see fit. Their inclusion will increase the internal validity of the reconsideration process by providing examples for the lay community members temporarily elected to the committee. Therefore, I request an audience with 1 or more board member to explain the merits of my proposal beyond what the 3 minutes here allows me to do. Good day.
My name's Doug Lean. I live at 8613 52nd Street here in Ada. We heard Ms. Davis almost skittish about the ability to spend the biggest bond possible. I had an opportunity to look at your syllabus and audited statements from your audited firms, and it was surprising to see that we're at least on the same page about the declining enrollment in Forest Hills. So Forest Hills is declining, and they did not actually say why. You've been led to know that it's because we have less babies being born, but that's not true in Forest Hills. It may be true in other areas, but not here. Their families come into this area, and we are declining. In 2 to 3 years from now, we'll be members. There'll be less than 8,100 people at the current trajectory, and we're setting up a task force to how we're going to spend the money. I suggest this board actually refocuses on why people are leaving this district. They're leaving because of parents' confidence in their ability for you to teach their kids. You're more concerned about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's making parents run at record speed. You should at least set up a task force if you're responsible and you really do care about the education of our students to take your job seriously. You're being told what to do, and as a board you have control. You've given that control to the administration. I strongly suggest that you set up this task force to find out why parents are leaving and lost confidence. A parent who decides to send their kid to a private institution weighs on the fact that they're going to pay for this institution regardless, and they're going to pay another institution for the teaching of their kids. What does that say? What does that say about your ability to manage the direction of this school? We're spending money on buildings that are going to be vacant. How are you going to handle when our enrollment's 8,100? That's where we'll be in 2 years from now, 8,100. School districts across the state are shrinking. You just came back from a statewide organization, and I bet you they did not talk about one item about declining enrollment and parents' confidence in public schools. Why is that? Why is that not a subject? You're willing to set up a task force how to spend money. Why don't you set up a task force and how you can regain parent confidence and actually teach our kids? Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Boone.
My name is Stephanie Boone. I live at 2205 Knoll Point Drive. And I just wanted to talk a little bit tonight about a paper that I found going through some just important papers in my home. And I hadn't glanced at it for a while, but my grandpa died at the age of 94 back in 2011. But my parents had asked him the week before he died to jot down any memories that he had from as far back as he could into his childhood. So he was born in 1917, and this is written in his handwriting, so it's pretty cool, but he talks about memories of riding horse and buggy to sell cucumbers at the market, walking 1.25 miles to school and back, so those stories are true that they had to walk uphill both ways in the snow, so just pretty cool to see that. But talks about the one-room schoolhouse that he went to in Greenville, Michigan, that has wood stove heat and a well that they had to pump outside to get water. And I just thought, when we compare to this bond that we just passed in our community, how I'm so thankful that our children's needs are met in the schools. My grandpa's needs were met as well back in the early 1900s, right? He had shelter and heat and water and the things that we need. But beyond that, if we're going to sit here in Forest Hills and be champions of diversity and equity and inclusion and talk about the need to, be welcomed and belonging and allow our students to express themselves, we need to be real careful with that we are not outing ourselves as hypocrites. Because while I really appreciated the Knapp Forest presentation tonight from the specials teachers. My children, all 6 of them, attended Knapp Forest schools. And just Mrs. T, the art teacher, her presentation got me wondering, because she's all about students expressing themselves. But it brought back a memory for me. My 10-year-old daughter got in trouble in her class during free painting time because she wanted to paint a cross. My daughter's a Christian. She got in trouble because she wanted to paint a cross and was told, we don't do that in my classroom. But I recently just saw pictures of the entryway to Mrs. T's classroom at Knapp Forest, and for some reason she's able to express herself with LGBTQ and political propaganda. And I just think we need to be real careful as a district here. What are our needs? What are our wants? Make sure our children's needs are met, and beyond that, if you're gonna push wants, you better not be hypocrites about it. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Robert Cripps.
Good afternoon, or evening, I should say. The only reason I'm up here is I just want to talk real quick about transportation for extra activities like sport events or school-designated events. Before the COVID hit, we always had transportation to go away for sports. For example, I was coaching girls sports. We had bus transportation would take us to Greenville and bring us back after the game was over. It's a courtesy offering, just not only sports, but special events. And they say, okay, we can't do it in Forest Hills, but yet we've had 3 home games that we have won today against Wyoming. All 3 schools had buses out front waiting for their kids after the games was over, and brought the kids over. It's kind of difficult for parents when you have a game at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon to try to get from work to pick the kids up to take them over to the event. Having the buses out front waiting for the kids to go to the event works out well. It's worked in the past, but now we don't do it. And it's just not for sports. We can do it for all kinds of school designated events. So why is it when I coach JV girls, Potter's House has the bus ride, Zion has one, Caledonia has one, Lowell has one, we don't. I think that's something we should really look forward to correcting in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared Jakubowski.
Jared Jakubowski, down the street and around the corner on White Hills. Here's a sampling of some woke strategies proven to be in government schools from sea to shining sea. Question is, how many are happening here and now or planned? Administrators and teachers insisting CRT is not being taught while it is being woven into DEI, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion agenda. White kids labeled as oppressors, kids of color, the oppressed. Racial division justified as diversity. Academic standards being lowered and scholastic achievement, valedictorian, salutatorian, being suppressed. Equity. Disruptive furries and delusional identities being tolerated in classrooms. Inclusion. Age of inappropriate books in libraries, very age-inappropriate books in teachers' private stash shelves available to their children. Maligning our great country in interest of social justice, aka Marxist ideology disguised as history. Lack of transparency from administrators and boards. Girls educated that they can be boys and boys can be girls if they want to be. Children being nudged into their need for gender-affirming care. Boys and girls bathrooms. Geez, how about tampons in boys' bathrooms? Parents not being fully informed regarding their children's personal issues. Children encouraged to explore any and all sexual options and fantasies. And remember, kiddos having been forced to distance, wear masks, and encouraged to vax, despite overwhelming scientific evidence that was not all just wrong. It was despicably destructive and evil. None of that happening here? Is Forest Hill somehow unique and the island of sanity in this nationwide sea of blue-pilled, woke mass psychosis? Really? So, out of my litany, how many are in the works here? 10 out of 15? Safe bet. 12, 13, more? Parents, grandparents, all stakeholders must keep count and stand up and be counted among those who are red-pilled. That is, aware of and confronting the hard, crazy, unreal realities infecting our country. And yes, most definitely our schools. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
My name is Brittany Martin, 668 Way, the address. I am a graduate of Forest Hills Northern, class of 2014. I come from a family with deep roots in the district. My brother also graduated from Forest Hills Northern in 2016, and my dad and all his brothers attended and graduated from FHC 88 to 96. Furthermore, my mother, Carrie Skinner Martin Kuhn, and stepfather, Jeff Kuhn, have been teaching at Northern Hills Middle School for about 25 years. Today, I'd like to bring your attention to a matter that concerns transparency and trust within our district. On October 26, 2021, I submitted a FOIA request seeking information on any investigation, discipline records, and salary pay changes for my mother and stepfather. On August 23rd, 2023, I submitted another FOIA request, this time for internal and external correspondence related to the former request. And during the review of the documents, I came across a troubling email thread. So when my October 2021, the initial FOIA request was received, both my mom and stepfather were informed about the request and their rights per district policies. However, what followed was unusual. My stepfather, Jeff Kuhn, forwarded the district's courtesy email to Tracy Hammerman-Krenka, who at the time was the Northern Hills Middle School librarian. I think she might be social studies teachers now. But Jeff was asking to schedule a meeting to discuss the matter with my mother, or with her. It's worth noting that Tracy doesn't hold any administrative, legal, or public relations role at FHPS. She's just a staff librarian. However, following Jeff and Tracy's meeting, Tracy forwarded the full email exchange, including the district's original email and Jeff's email requesting a meeting with Tracy, and her own additional commentary to 3 individuals, 2 of whom are FHPS employees that also don't hold any administrative or legal roles with the district, and 1 Michigan Education Association representative, Chris Patrick, a librarian at Forest Hills Central, Courtney Kittredge-Cook, a 4th grade teacher at Knapp Forest Elementary, and Brett Laubach, local MEA representative. And her added commentary said, in case anything develops in the future that could cast a shadow on Carrie, my mom, and Jeff Kuhn, my stepfather's professional records.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Anyway, Courtney wrote in her response,
That's all we have time for.
thanks,
Everybody gets
Tracy.
3 minutes.
In the future, let's use our personal emails for this type of communication.
All right, this time public comments are closed. The board thanks you for your input, and the appropriate district representative will follow up with all who requested it. Is there any other business before the board? All right, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.